Hey everyone, this is my review of WandaVision episode 6. All right, so episode 6, right off the bat, I have to admit that I was a bit underwhelmed by this episode, especially following up after episodes 4 and 5, where we had some big reveals, big moments. The Pietro reveal was what I am claiming may be the biggest moment in the history of the MCU. So when we got to episode 6, it just didn't live up to that same escalation that we had in the previous episodes. And I was predicting that we were going to continue that escalation. We're just going to keep getting bigger and bigger moments. Episode 6 took a little bit of a step back, which was, disappointing. But I'm not overly criticizing it. It was still a lot of fun. I really enjoyed the episode, which leads me to point out that I actually thought that episode 6 was the funniest of all the episodes so far, especially within that sitcom world. Obviously, a lot of people pointed out that this was an homage to Malcolm in the Middle, that was the big model for this episode. But on top of that, I also saw, and this may be just me personally, a lot of Zach and Cody and those Disney sitcoms. The Disney family had a lot of sitcoms in the early 2000s. And the ABC Family Night, I think that was Friday. I don't remember exactly what they called it, but it's where you had Boy Meets World and all that. This was all part of the Disney network, and especially Zach and Cody. And if you probably have already seen the side-by-side comparison of WandaVision, the opening sequence for episode 6, and Malcolm in the Middle, but go and take a look at Zach and Cody, and you'll see that that was also very, very similar. And probably they were taking from Malcolm in the Middle too. It was kind of setting the tone that we would get in the early 2000s. I was really digging that Disney vibe, and the way they were making fun of it, and obviously Malcolm in the Middle as well. But I also thought that the twins were doing a really good job as playing that stereotypical sitcom children, the precocious youth. They did just good enough to fit into the satire of it all, because those kids actors were never, they were never Natalie Portman in The Professional or anything like that. They were always just there to be kid idols, and these kids I think are doing a very good job of at least mimicking that from these earlier shows that they're I wouldn't say making fun of, but just paying tribute to. And I also, one last comment on the Disney shows, I really want to just give a shout out to Wizards of Waverly Place. I think that also probably was an influence on some of the writers, and for obvious reasons, here we have a show about witches. How could you not pay tribute to Wizards of Waverly Place? And if you haven't seen that show, I swear that it still holds up, so you should check that out. So yeah, I enjoyed the episode. I thought it was funny. I thought that Uncle Pietro was great in the Uncle Jesse role. And so it was enjoyable. It just didn't have the escalation that I was expecting. Obviously, we had a big climax with Vision nearly dying, and then the expansion of the Hex. But it just didn't bring any, oh my God moments like the previous 2 episodes did. Which brings me to what I think is one of the biggest problems with this episode and the whole series, which is that acting director Hayward is just not a very good villain, and it just falls into the great tradition of the underwhelming Marvel villain that we've had in so many of the movies. The heroes are always much more interesting than the villain, and usually in the classic great action movies, there's a good balance between the protagonist and the antagonist, and they play off each other and they feed off each other. In this show, acting director Hayward so far is the main visible antagonist. Obviously, Wanda is something of her own antagonist. She's her own worst enemy, or she's struggling with her own grief and trying to overcome her depression. And so that is the main focus. But, you know, you should still have a good B villain. And in this case, the B villain so far is acting director Hayward. And he is, just like I said, not convincing at all. And it's just like, why is he making all these bad choices? I know that he obviously has some kind of secret, you know, plan going on, the cataract, whatever that's going to turn out to be, that must have involved experiments on Vision's body. I get all that. It's not interesting. It's not compelling. It's not setting up a good, you know, it's not a good obstacle for our heroes to overcome. In this case, it's the B villain for our B heroes, Randall Park and Kat Dennings, and it's just like, why can't we do better? And so, while overall I still really enjoyed this episode, it just didn't live up to the previous episodes and felt like a little bit of a letdown. Hopefully it is just the lull before the storm, as they say, and things are going to really pick up next week. And so I'm getting really excited to see what episode 7 is going to be. So let's look forward and make some predictions. So last time I was talking about the sitcom trope and how much longer they were going to continue that, and how we had kind of run through all the big decades. And it's like, I think they're probably going to do something with the 90s, which turned out to be Malcolm in the Middle. I didn't predict that, and that was good. But what next? What's left? Like I said, I would love to see something paying tribute to like the Office style comedies, but that was not a family sitcom, so I just don't see them doing the docu-style, although I think it would be cool and a really good like change of pace to switch it up that way. But I just don't see it, and so I guess I don't think I've ever even seen one complete episode, but the last family sitcom I can think of is Modern Family. And so is that going to be what they pay tribute to this week? Are they just going to abandon it? It's going to be really interesting to see where it goes from here. Another big mystery that I'm expecting is going to get cleared up next week is who is Darcy's astrophysicist friend. At this point, if it's not Reed Richards, it's going to be a huge disappointment. If you thought of the possibilities and you're thinking, well, what if it were Tony Stark, even though he's dead? Or what if it were Bruce Banner? Or what if it were one of the big scientists in the Avengers? That doesn't make sense, because why would she say my astrophysicist friend? Why wouldn't she just say Tony Stark or Bruce Banner or whoever it is? So I don't think it's going to be like a big name character like that. It would have to be someone new. I just know how the internet works, and I can only guess that it's going to be a huge disappointment that it wasn't Reed Richards. And finally, my last prediction for episode 7 is that I think this is going to be the moment when we really find out what's going on with Agnes. I predict that she's going to be a witch, based strictly on the comics, but we'll see. Obviously, they could change things up. They could bring in some kind of surprise villain, though I think that would be pretty disappointing at this point. But obviously there's been something going on with Agnes, and it's been building to that. And I think by episode 7, that's going to be the time that we get the reveal and kind of get ready for our landing approach, as we, you know, are close to the end of the season and perhaps the series as a whole, which is sad. But yeah, I'm fully expecting that episode 7 is going to turn things around, and something big is going to happen next week, and I can't wait to see what it is. If you have any predictions, please go ahead and leave them in the comments. And if you like the review, please like or subscribe. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and I will see you next time.